What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlamia here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumours you need to know, including the shocking rumour that Cody Rhodes is a free agent, the reason behind why Mustafa Ali quit WWE, heat between Brian Danielson and AEW, the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view will be overseas, a champion returning to the Royal Rumble, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now let's hit the intro and get straight into our first story. It's definitely good to be back. Now our first story looks at Cody Rhodes, a free agent. Topping the news today is a wild rumour concerning current TNT champion Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, who is one of the All Elite Wrestling's executive vice presidents and who played a major role in the founding of AEW, may no longer be under contract to AEW. Fightful Select has learned that the current AEW TNT champion Cody Rhodes is technically a free agent. Cody's contract expired at the end of 2021 and he's been working in All Elite Wrestling without a contract ever since. Based on sources we followed up with in AEW this morning, we're told that some have known about this over the past several weeks. Cody recently told Sports Illustrated that, as of now, my future is with AEW. The second generation star went on to say, AEW would be very strange without the core members of the Revolution. We all still talk, we all have this admiration for each other. I can't see myself anywhere else and I'm very optimistic about what the future holds. However, what if Cody Rhodes changes his mind? Could the American Nightmare head back to the WWE and test the waters there after years of frustration of trying to break out of the mid-card? Now, of course, talk is naturally going to turn to the Royal Rumble and whether Cody might show up. Given Rhodes' bad experience in the WWE, it's heavily unlikely he'd ever return there, and why would he want to? Short of the WWE throwing an insane amount of money at him, and Rhodes would be a fool unless he got a guaranteed deal, which is an unlikely prospect, Cody has no motivation in going there. It's difficult to envision Cody main eventing in WWE other than to put Roman Reigns over, and even that might be a stretch considering the WWE's perception of Cody's value as a performer. Now, we aren't disputing Fightful Select's story, but don't rule out this being a work shoot. After all, it wasn't too long ago that Cody told fans expecting him to turn heel and that he had a direction plan that he was going to shock fans. Could AEW work the possibility of Cody leaving AEW into a storyline? If so, will AEW have Rhodes tease jumping to WWE, much like MJF is doing, New Japan, or even somewhere else? What do you guys think is next for Cody? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up, other AEW contracts expiring. One of the most intriguing parts of the Cody Rhodes story is Fightful Select's report that Rhodes may not be the only current AEW wrestler who could be a free agent soon. They mentioned, in addition, we've heard there were some originally reported contract lengths in AEW that differed from what they actually were. We'll work to clear some of those up as best as we can in the coming weeks. Short of AEW President Tony Khan being a complete nincompoop, it's hard to believe AEW would have its top stars sign contract extensions in order to keep them from being wooed by the WWE. AEW will be humiliated if it turns out that management let a number of high-level stars' contracts expire. Wrestling News' Andrew Ravens recently reported that both the Young Bucks and Tony Schiavone signed contract extensions for AEW, so it's unlikely Rhodes' contract elapsed due to anyone's oversight. Next up, the real reason behind why Mustafa Ali quit WWE. Now, there's more news coming out of our recent story about WWE superstar Mustafa Ali's release request. Fightful Select is reporting that Mustafa and Mr. McMahon had what's being described as a heated argument. Apparently, Ali pitched a new character with a political slant, and while the new persona was initially approved, the WWE decided to cancel it. According to Fightful Select, as Ali revealed weeks ago, there was a vignette filmed for Mustafa Ali's New America gimmick that looked promising for the star. According to those in the know, initially the character was accepted before those in power in WWE changed their mind. We're told that in its place there was a pitch from Vince McMahon for something Mustafa Ali would never have done, and it led to a heated argument between the two. Ali hasn't been around since. Mustafa Ali has struggled in the WWE ever since an unfortunate injury in 2019 derailed what some fans saw as his breakout year. Ali was scheduled for that year's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view with thoughts that he might win the match and begin getting a huge push. Now, Kofi Kingston replaced Ali after his injury, with the WWE Universe rallying behind the Dreadlock Dynamo's strong performance and setting the wheels in motion for Kofi Mania, the phenomenon which led to Kofi defeating Daniel Bryan for the championship at WrestleMania 35. The WWE had an instant feud after Ali turned heel, with Mustafa blaming Kingston for stealing his spot. But apparently there was even talk of pitting the two superstars against each other at last year's Mania. Kofi Kingston recently spoke with Metro UK, revealing it was perfect. It was written, you didn't even have to go out of your way to creatively write anything else. It was perfect. But alas, that's not the direction that The Office, I guess, wanted to go in. That's just kind of the way that goes. Maybe down the line we'll get a chance to revisit that opportunity. Now, the match didn't happen and was replaced with the New Day dropping the Raw Tag Team Championships to AJ Styles and Omos at 2020 Showcase of the Immortals. This likely was another reason for Ali's continued frustration with WWE and his release request. It's just one of the many failed or cancelled storylines Ali was involved in, including his role as SmackDown hacker and his time as a leader of the Renegade faction Retribution. Next up, is there any heat between AEW and Brian Danielson? AEW is known for letting its wrestlers work in other promotions, but is there heat between Brian Danielson and AEW over him wanting to work outside of AEW? If you've heard that there's heat between Danielson and AEW, well, you've probably heard wrong. It appears that any disagreement between Brian and AEW management is minor at worst and is a case of AEW wanting to capitalize on Daniel's value before letting him wrestle in another promotion. Dave Meltzer recently discussed the situation on the Wrestling Observer Radio, saying, Brian Danielson, without going into detail, but some people will figure it out, there's an independent promotion, which I believe he wants to work for, in a market that AEW has not run yet, and AEW is not against him working for that promotion, but when they run that market, they want Brian Danielson's first match in that market to be in AEW. A rumor has it that Danielson wants to work in the California-based pro wrestling guerrilla promotion, but fans will have to wait and see what plays out. Next up, Elimination Chamber officially announced and is overseas. Are fans wondering whether the WWE is going to hold the Elimination Chamber in 2022 need one to know more, as WWE.com has just recently announced. The General Entertainment Authority, in cooperation with WWE, has announced that the Elimination Chamber Premium Live event will be held at the world's largest pillarless Superdome in Jeddah on Saturday, February 19th, 2022. More details of the event will be announced in the coming weeks. And there was some talk of the WWE changing the name of the Elimination Chamber match, or even changing the name of the annual pay-per-view, with Dave Meltzer saying that it was going to be WrestleMania Elimination Chamber. Good God, thank God they didn't go with that. And while it seems that the match isn't being renamed, fans will have to wait and see what the WWE calls its 19 February event in Saudi Arabia. What do you think they will call this year's Saudi Arabia event? Just going to leave it to Elimination Chamber? Well, we certainly hope so. Next up, Vince McMahon's bizarre belief about babyfaces. Now, Vince McMahon is known for making some bizarre booking decisions, but a recent disclosure from Matt Hardy may provide some insight into the WWE Kingpin's mindset. Speaking on his The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast, he recalled a TLC match where he and Brother Nero were supposed to win the WWE tag titles, only for McMahon to modify things. Well, that was supposed to be our big win, and then he said, well, it's too predictable. Everybody in that venue is going to know you're going to win, and they're expecting you to win. So I don't want to do that. Let's do it the next show. Hardy noted an intriguing comment from Vinnie Mac, something which may help explain some of the WWE's most bizarre booking decisions. Vince is a big advocate. If you're over as a babyface, then there are times when you don't need to win. It doesn't make a difference, and it's kind of how we look at it. While it's true that babyfaces don't always need to win, the WWE has an unorthodox policy of having babyface lose feuds to heels, and booking style that can lead to a face losing popularity with the fans. Fans have seen this happen a lot on SmackDown, particularly with Universal Champion Roman Reigns, who beats babyface opponents routinely. And finally, a WWE Champion returning to the Rumble. And last but not least, is former Women's Champion returning to the 2022 Women's Royal Rumble. Now, while fans know that former Women's Champion Mickie James is returning to this year's Rumble, the McMahon Wrestling podcast Andrew Zarian recently reported that Asuka is cleared to compete in the WWE. Asuka, who took time off for a rumoured arm injury and to have dental work, would be a great addition to this year's Rumble. The Empress of Tomorrow is a main event star who the WWE failed to utilise during her last reign as Raw Women's Champion, another reminder of how poorly booked the women's division is unless your name is Charlotte or Becky Lynch. But there you have it, guys, the wildest news stories and rumours you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.